So welcome everyone to today's CHASM workshop, which will feature 2 online workshops and 1 online panel discussion. The first workshop, which we are starting now, is on analog mission safety. The second one later in the afternoon will be on spacesuits. So if I can give you a brief overview of what we are going to talk about now. As you can see on the screen, I hope everybody can see the screen. We have 4 main subtopics for the mission safety. We have personnel safety, loss of mission, safety simulations, and risk management in general. And we would like to be very interactive. So it's not me or anyone else presenting, but we would like to have a very lively discussion about these topics. A bit about logistics. We have 1 hour now in this workshop. Then we will break for lunch for half an hour, and then we will continue for another 2 hours, I think, till the end of the workshop. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, please speak up. Just unmute yourself, stop me talking, raise your hand in the video or raise your virtual hand in Zoom, so I can see that you would like to say something. And thank you to the entire team behind this CHASM workshop, the second CHASM workshop, for making this possible. Also, thank you Astroland for all their input, their work, their activities, hosting the workshop, etc. So let's jump into it. Unless somebody has a question right now about the organization, about the topic. One question from my side: not everybody is a native speaker of English, so we should not speak too fast or potentially use complicated words that not everyone might know. And if there is anything that you don't understand, please just say so. We are here to learn together, and we should get the utmost benefit of this session. So I would just okay, you can also use the chat if you want. But let's just get started. And I would suggest to start actually with the topic of personnel safety, which is, of course, of utmost importance during analog missions. We need to ensure that the astronauts, analog astronauts, and also the mission support team are safe at all times. So as you can see, we have prepared a couple of topics that we would like to touch, but please feel free to add more topics. That's what we're here for. So maybe we would like to start with the topic of habitat safety. What is important in terms of habitat safety? Who would like to get the discussion started? Floor is open.
what I don't see is fire safety.
Okay.
Is it by purpose?
Yeah, as I said, this is not a complete guideline. This is just we just brainstorm some topics to get the discussion going. So whatever you would like to add, it's great. Yeah. So we made a note of it. Fire safety, yes. Anything else? Good point.
Are you guys located in maybe earthquake areas?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. It's like Turkey lately. This kind of dangerous.
Yeah. Also, we had recently a scare at high seas habitat in Hawaii. There was a volcano erupting, and there was a danger of actually lava flow destroying the habitat. But luckily, it didn't go that way. Mm-hmm. Yes, Giulio.
Yes, thanks. One of the points that I'd like to mention is related to extravehicular activities. The plans for the extravehicular activities. One good way is have a checklist about what to do, what not to do during extravehicular activity, and this would avoid some problems. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, checklist, safety checklist. Yeah, during EVA, absolutely. Anything else?
Also, other interesting point is related to monitoring. Also, is something connected with physical safety, as you mentioned, physiological, psychological too. It's very important during the EVAs. A very strong monitoring of what is happening with the health condition of the analogue astronauts. Sometimes using like probably some wearables would be nice if you have like a system. If you have like, if possible, have something like if you know about the heartbeats of the analogue astronauts, if someone is presenting like a high frequency, and if this would bring some difficulties or some risk, health risk for the astronauts, maybe you would say, look, someone is present a high risk of, and you need to have great attention.
Yes, absolutely. So that obviously implies that we have to have a team in place who does the monitoring. Yeah. Safety team, medical team, yeah. Yeah, to supervise the EVA. What else can you think of? Making this a bit smaller. We have, for example, in terms of habitat safety, now we have water. There needs to be fresh water. Yeah. Access. We need to be able to access the habitat, even if it's raining or there is a landslide or anything like that, because as we know, most of the habitats are are in kind of some remote regions where there is not too much infrastructure usually, yeah. And that also means like access control, so that not any stranger can just walk into the habitat, yeah. What else is important in personnel safety?
Karen, something important is related how the crew is prepared to some health emergency, and also if they some training about the use of the first aid items and also the pharmacy, because during extreme environments, I imagine that many places in the world the analog situations will be happening in some wild areas, and it's very important. Sometimes also if you are simulating lava caves or doing activities in caves, sometimes someone would fall down, and it's very important to train also to simulate some conditions related to what possible risks. The risks are something very interesting that you are studying, and because extreme environments also present high risks too, I believe.
Yes. Also first aid equipment, yeah, and pharmaceutical supplies, yeah. Can you see that? It's probably a bit small, yeah. I have to zoom in. Yeah. Absolutely.
Maybe it's connected a little bit to the risk assessment, but also the scenarios of the emergency for the habitat itself. So if you have a fire on one place, what you do? If you have a fire on the other hand, on the other place, what you do? The to-do list. Somewhere it should be adapted to the scenario. You cannot just make one scenario that you run out, because there should be many evacuation exits providing different routes for people in case of fire in different places. It's maybe a risk assessment about to assess which points are the most dangerous, like a server room or a printer room or something like that. So it's connected to risk assessment, let's say. It's in fact the scenario is about the habitat safety.
Yeah. So identification of biggest risks, and also training scenarios for all risk, for all high or for the top risks. I think we can't train for every single scenario because there's like literally hundreds of risks involved. But as you said, Shimik, that we have some protocols for at least for the major risk, yeah? Is that what you're saying, yeah?
Yeah.
Did I get this right? Okay, thank you. Protocols and rehearsals, yeah, rehearsals for biggest risks. Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm just zooming out a little bit again, so we have the overview effect once more. If we go back a little bit again to the personnel safety, if we check that we have covered everything, yeah, in the habitat, for example, we said access structural, yeah, we need to, of course, make sure that the roof doesn't collapse. Yeah, that electrical wiring is done in a safe way. Yeah. We need to make sure that we have electricity at least most of the time. It might not be necessary all of the time, and there might be some experiments that actually require us being without electricity. Yeah. We have to protect us against criminal activity. Yeah, nobody is breaking into the habitat or destroying something. Or like Chris Hadfield once, he broke into the ISS. He didn't have the key, so he just picked the lock. So, that was a bit unusual. So we have to be careful of that as well. Then biohazards and material hazards, yeah, there can be some, I don't know, poisonous snakes around the habitat, or poisonous plants that we're not so supposed to touch, things like that. Yeah.
It's a weather safety. You can say it natural weather safety is like winds,
Yes.
tornadoes, earthquakes. This is like a volcano. All this is like natural cause.
Yeah,
disasters.
it's I would even mention it as a separate point. The climate has to do with the location, but the weather is kind of independent. Yeah. Severe weather. Like today, it's very windy here. So we have a very strong wind, so I'm not going on too many EVAs today. I did take the trash out. Yeah. Yeah, that's can be an environmental hazard, but an environmental hazard can also be like the terrain. Yeah, it's very steep slopes, or there is some cliff or something like that, or big rocks that the astronauts can stumble on during the EVA. That's also in the environment. Anything else we have there?
I don't know how to classify some topics related to mental health.
Yes,
because we
absolutely.
can see sometimes some possibility of some sabotage or some difficult situation during the analogue missions, if not consider the mental health. Some protocols to also is, I believe, there's something that we just mentioned about is connected with what I'm saying. But maybe some protocol related.
Yes. Yeah. So
Maybe some inquiry, some surveys would identify this, some reports, what the people say during the personal reports. Maybe can predict some psychological
predict or diagnose. Yeah.
Also AI would be interesting to use to analyze the reports, what the people say, if the participants are saying something, present some disconnected ideas, and maybe this would be interesting using AI for it.
Communication analysis. Yeah. Yeah, for example, if they say like 5 times per day, oh, I just wish I was home already, or something like that, it can be, of course, a predictor. Yeah, so please don't follow this structure too much, because everything is really interlinking. Yeah. So we just try to give the names, to give some names to the categories, but of course, if the habitat is not safe, if people don't feel safe in the habitat, that can then, of course, lead to psychological issues. Yeah, they don't sleep very well, they get stressed. Yeah. So these things are not independent from each other. Yeah. So, and then Julio, one aspect you mentioned, I have not written down yet. Yeah, protocols. You were saying protocols for mental health, for keeping the astronauts mentally healthy. Yeah. Yeah. And I had already put here psychological first aid. So just like we train astronauts in medical, physiological, physical first aid, there should also be some psychological first aid training. Yeah? What do we do if somebody is stressed all the time? What do we do if somebody has a panic attack during the mission? Yeah, or maybe during an EVA. So we also need to prepare for these scenarios. Yeah, just as somebody can break an arm or a leg, they can suffer a panic attack, or they can suffer sleep insomnia, you know, sleepless nights, which is not a big deal when it happens once, but if it happens like a couple of nights in a row, then there should be some serious concern. Yeah.
Don't you have this feeling that all those very small boxes are the international part of an international standard that should be developed and signed by all the habitat missions, habitat owners even? It looks like that for me.
Yes, there is actually a group has been formed a couple of weeks ago who will do exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they will set standards for analog missions. And of course, it's like there are standards for real space missions, and analog missions should be as realistic as it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So also they should include that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Piwa when I was talking to Manuel. We were discussing that this would be very good to have a common standards on all the parts of the running the habitat and running the missions. So it's running the habitat. It's a kind of a more legal issue, and running the mission is like more like simulation.
Yeah.
Part.
So we should have actually standards for each mission in terms of psychological safety, and we should have standards for each habitat. Yeah.
So people all around the world can feel safe in any habitat they go. It doesn't matter where they go. So they will always be kept with the particular bottom level of the standard. Like they will be always secured with for the criminals.
Yes.
Safety. Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah.
This means, of course, more money.
Yeah, but I think we're all aware that going to Mars will cost us a couple of bucks. Yeah, it's not, we can't do it on a shoestring, like we can't go cheap here. So I don't think we should save money here. Yeah. So Manos just wrote in the chat, I think before someone becomes an analog astronaut, they should first pass some really difficult psychological tests in order for their mental health safety to be ensured. Yeah. Psychological selection criteria, yeah, psychological.
I have a question to Julio. When you allow people to start a mission, do you have some kind of a first check if they are just not crazy? Yes, it's
Yeah. There is a form. The people in the form, the people present the motivations. Also, we have some meetings to present how we operate the missions and to understand the motivations of the participant. Till now, we never had problem with some psychological disorder in the missions. Yes, something also important is understand if the participants using some kind of psychiatric prescribed medicine, because sometimes when the people is a user of some psychiatric medicine, in some extreme situation, this would present more a greater challenge for the participant, and this also the use of some prescribed medicine would also give some tips about some previous psychological difficulties that the people deals. And this is important to know if the participant will be comfortable with some challenge that will be presented during the analog missions.
Do you have something like a bottom line where crossing this line stops the mission or removes the participant? Do you have any procedure on that? You're internally.
Okay, we also following what's happening, because we never presented during our mission some extreme situation, and also it's very important to manage all the time the emotions, because also the good way to deal with the participants with the emotions. And I believe that one of the more important things is how to keep the mental health during the entire mission, okay? Since the beginning, in the morning, during the all days, this I believe is very key issue, because we've done also something important that I just mentioned for Carrie. Sometimes it's the humor is very important to keep the humor during. Also have funny moments during the missions to keep the mental health, I believe.
Yes.
But on the other hand, when you have a real emergency situation or simulated emergency situation, it can run this panic attack or some kind of a mental disorder that further on, even finished, is like a PTSD for the soldiers. It's you have something like that. You have like a disorder after the event.
Yeah, I think Shimek, you're making really, really important points here. I would like to pick up on some of these, and then let's dive deeper into that discussion, because it's very interesting. In terms of Habitat Mater, Julio and I are closely cooperating. We have both degrees in psychology, so we know a little bit about it. For me, it's also a bit of there are two sides to the medal, because analog missions are there to simulate what will happen on Mars. If we go to Mars, yeah, minimum time to go there, be there, and come back is 1.5 years. Yeah, and if we send a lot of people, we are very, very likely to experience some psychological issues, yeah, that have not been predicted. So should we not actually embrace it? I mean, we should not trigger somebody to have a anxiety attack or anything like that. But if it should happen, yeah, we must be prepared. There must be protocols. We have to have psychological first aid training, and we will be able to learn quite a lot from handling the situation. Yeah, so the same way I would not break somebody's leg just to see if the medical procedures work in an analog vision. I would not want to trigger some mental issues during a mission, but if and when it happens, we can learn a lot from dealing with it. And with these questionnaires, conversations, psychological tests, yeah, you can catch quite a lot with that, but we can't catch everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For example, the NASA astronauts, especially the first ones, they went through all kind of medical, psychological, psychiatrical tests that were possible at this time. And again, if you take the case of Buzz Aldrin, he had severe mental issues when he came back. I mean, not the 3 days. Well, it was not 3 days at that time. He wasn't 3 days on the moon. There were a few hours on the moon. But the journey there, the landing, coming back, that was, he performed extremely well, of course. But when he was back on Earth, that's when it hit. And for me, he's a hero. If not for walking on the moon, then just for actually having the guts to speak out about that and to
okay. So following your thought is, do you have anything like post-mission, not only evaluation but also long-term post-mission contact?
Yeah, we don't have right now, but it would be really great.
It's just like enquete or something like that, just to monitor also the long-term consequences of being close to like 2 weeks with 6 people.
Yes. Yeah, or more. I mean, some analog missions like Mars 500, for example, it was a longer. Now we will see in the near future more missions that will actually last a year or more.
Yeah, they are planned.
Missions. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so maybe I will just introduce. My name is, you can call me Simon, it's much easier to spell. I'm an architect, so I'm not a psychologist, but I implement psychology in the design. And what my goal here, my goal is in the second CHASM. I want to make some emergency, really push people to the extremes, like organizing like a fire alarm, but very harsh. The more it is harsh, the better.
Mm-hmm.
So because I'm dealing constantly with the evacuation of the big buildings, so this is why I'm so interested in the safety area.
Yeah,
that's why I'm asking there's so many
strange
questions to you.
Yeah,
because you are the practice people.
Yeah.
I'm just a theoretical in this business.
Of extreme situations. Yeah, like fire. Do you want to set the station on fire?
You know, that would be the dream when you put what you use on the football matches, on the football games. You have this I don't know how you call it.
Oh yeah,
The
these
fireworks
pyrotechnic.
make lots of smoke.
Yeah.
Because what is killing people is smoke. It's not a fire, in fact.
Yes, that's true.
So when you simulate a smoke and you have 6 people to evacuate immediately in very small place, which is immediately covered with smoke. Of course,
Yes.
the smoke is not going to kill them, but it's a kind of a panic, just to to measure the time when you wake up, when you dress up or not. What do you do? What people do when they wake up and they have to run for life? It's all this goes to the pre-evacuation time, which gives you the time between the encountering the fire and being safe.
Yeah.
And the shorter the time is, the better, of course.
Yes. Yeah.
This is also a kind of a risk assessment as well, part of a risk assessment.
Yeah.
And procedures to what to do. So if we are talking about real building safety, I believe it should reflect at least the codes of the particular country.
Yeah.
And because it's like mostly it is treated like a non-capital building. It's like containers.
Yeah.
A little bit different rules apply. But on the other hand, when you have an emergency, the firefighters, they come and they need also to understand how to help the people inside the habitat. So the fire safety, I don't know what is the stage of development of such, because if you have a cave like in Astroland, it's very hard to get there for firefighters to help. The time between the emergency and the arrival and help could be like 1 hour, because they have to climb up.
Yeah, and they might not be able to use the equipment because there's not enough water pressure, or the equipment is not is too small for the entrance.
So if you put a building into operation, you are obliged by the regulations in most of the countries that you have emergency scenarios that are written for the firefighting and rescue, like medical rescue teams. And you are obliged to follow them under the condition that you will be penalized. Yes, it's normal. When somebody dies in your building, you are responsible. This is I don't know how far it goes with the permissions in different countries. I know that Leszek, for example, in Lunares, they had to obey many rules. And if you observe Lunares, for example, they have evacuation exit from every single room. They are normally closed, but they are provided from every single room. You can just go outside and be safe. It's like that. It's something I was thinking like that those plans should be provided.
Yes, like you have in your hotel room, you have a plan there at your door how to get out.
Especially
can we learn something maybe from air traffic? Because on a plane you have these fluorescent strips on the floor that guide you to the exits. So if it's smoky, you would, in theory, if you crawl on all fours, you would most likely still be able to see those guidelines and be able to reach the nearest exits. What do you think about that?
I would develop this idea into that you have to have a fluorescent markings on every single safety equipment, like how you call it, when you have a heart attack, you have this this device. I don't know.
This defibrillator.
Defibrillator, yeah, and you have it. It should be on around. It should be a fluorescent something around every fire extinguisher. It could be marked with a fluorescent tape. It's cheap solution, but it's good for recognition during the possible smoke.
Yeah, fire blanket should also be there. Yeah. Minimum equipment that I have in my kitchen. Because it can be that some substances from the experiments, if we handle chemicals, we might not even be able to extinguish a fire with water. It might be dangerous. Also, if there is electric wiring, yeah, you cannot use water or even a fire extinguisher on all kinds of substances, on electric wiring. But should we have a defibrillator in the habitat?
It depends how far is the mission control.
Yeah. Well, mission control is usually very far.
Nobody is. Then you would need the training of using it, just not to kill somebody.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but these they have them a lot in public places these days.
Yes.
And it's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, there's like 6 pictures on it. Yeah, and if you follow these 6 pictures, you can do it without previous training.
I would say that they are located in the public buildings.
Yeah.
And when you have a public building, there should be in public building a person responsible for the safety measures, and this person's responsibility to train herself or somebody to use such a device. Because when somebody lies with a heart attack, first of all, you are not. I am not a doctor, so I cannot see if what is to be used, and I can just kill somebody by using a wrong equipment.
Yeah, no. The equipment, it's built in a way that it's safe. So it first measures, and then it tells you shock or don't shock. Yeah, because the shock makes sense when your heart is out of rhythm. When your heart is not beating at all, then the shock doesn't really do a lot. Yeah. So what's the official name of these? Is it? Yeah.
You know what they say? Not enough time. This is too much, too interesting, and we are just in the beginning, and we are after like 15 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah, we have another 2 hours after the lunch break. So.
I believe it's much too short. Too short.
Yeah. No, we have 3 hours in total for this. Yeah. So yeah, one point that I think is quite important is to consider the experiments. Yeah, because we sometimes have experiments containing hazardous material, or things like large batteries that, for example, for rovers that have to be charged overnight, which you potentially don't want to have inside the habitat, because first of all, they're a fire hazard. There can be some substances evaporating if something is wrong. So, or in worst case, they could potentially explode. Yeah. So this is the nice thing, that we have such a mix of people, that we have you as an architect from your perspective. This gives us a more holistic picture of the safety situation. Yeah. And any of the other participants?
Yeah, it became quite quiet.
Anybody got anything to add, to ask? What is your perspective? And yeah, we have a lot of different perspectives, so there is no right and wrong. We just have to make sure that we put all of our perspective together to make analog missions as safe as possible. So anybody else would like to share their ideas?
We didn't discuss the financial risks.
Yes.
To...
We did not yet. Exactly. Yeah. What would you see as biggest financial risks that we should look into a bit more? We added 2 items, a loss of funding, we lost a sponsor maybe, or something can be damaged, yeah, the equipment, and such equipment can be quite expensive to replace, yeah. So should there be an insurance for example, for analog missions? What do you think?
Good idea, Karen.
Yeah, if we have a rover that costs like 30,000 euros or dollars, yeah. That can be in the mission or in the habitat, yeah. The question is, who has an insurance for that? Yeah. What else can happen when we talk about financial risks?
Sometimes also some risks relates to some robbery, a thief or something like this.
Yeah. 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 And welcome, Raut.
Welcome.
Yeah. So that ties in a little bit with our criminal activity here, yeah, that we have to protect ourselves against. Yeah. What else can you think of? Maybe I zoom out a little bit again. That we can enjoy the overview effect. Yeah. Mariam, did you want to say something? No. So we have here an area that we have not spoken about at all yet, which relates to personnel safety, which is the mission support staff. So take Apollo 11. Yeah, there were 3 astronauts and about 400,000 people working to make it happen. Yeah, so isn't mission support staff even more important than the astronauts? Because astronauts are, I'm asking a provocative question here, because there's so many more of them. And how can we ensure that somebody sitting in a mission support office, maybe far away from the habitat, for example, in Amadi 20, the astronauts were in the Negev desert in Israel, and the mission support team was in Innsbruck in Austria. So there was no physical connection. We couldn't go there. The astronauts couldn't come to us. What do you think is important to also make sure that mission support staff is kept safe and healthy?
I have a question. Did you meet such a there was in 60s there was this exercise when students were closed, and part of them were made in the prison, and part of them were inmates, and part of them were
yes,
guards.
the Stanford prison experiment.
Yeah. And do you think that could have some kind of after like long time you start to push make a bigger and bigger pressure or pressure on the people inside?
Of course it
Do you
can
have
happen.
something? Did you notice that like that, something like that? Or the missions were too short?
Yeah, I mean there was some pressure, but not like peer pressure. There was pressure of some circumstances that, for example, an experiment didn't work the first time, and then we had to try another time, and time was running out, and this can of course happen, but it's a good point. We can note it here. Stanford. Put such scenario B or C. No? We can put it as a question. Yeah. It's maybe worth thinking about, yeah. Absolutely.
Also, it's very important the planning, because the planning activities would predict a lot of situations that would happen during the missions. Also, this kind of discussions are interesting too, because we would predict some possible situations that our planning needs to deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And Kushi, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If not, please tell me how to pronounce it correctly. She writes that since I'm an engineer, from a design perspective, I can think of a suggestion for, thank you, for a safety design feature to be added for EVA suits. The suit should be designed to improve mobility by adding supports or braces to help the astronauts with mobility impairment move their limbs in case of an injury or accident, like something like an exoskeleton. We can put it in EVA safety, yeah. We now have in the spacesuit simulators, the astronauts are actually wearing, some astronauts are actually wearing exoskeletons, but not to help their movement, but to restrict their movement, to simulate in a pressurized suit. But yeah, why not turn it around? Yeah.
Do you think that getting back to mission support staff do you think that the minimum number of shifts should be defined as the common standard, so that people cannot work more, like it's like pilots, they cannot work more than 12 hours or 8 hours. a day point, and they are because they might be a subject to burnout, boredom, and then start to make higher pressure on the unwanted pressure on the astronauts inside.
Yeah, not only that, because it increases stress, and stress increases the risk of conflict. Yeah.
But simulated conflict is a good thing, but non-simulated conflict could be a danger to the mission itself.
Yeah, like destructive conflict. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's not planned, then it's bad for mission.
Yes, absolutely.
If it lies in the scenario, it's okay. But for me, it's like measured or unmeasured conflicts, behaviors.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Absolutely. Right. It's 1:30 Astroland time. So we are scheduled for half an hour lunch break. So I will leave this session open. I will just switch off my camera and mute myself. So I will
okay, so I'm just checking in to see if everything's fine. Online team, everything is okay?
Yes.
You seem to be doing some good progress, so that's
Zoom. So welcome back. I hope you all had a nice lunch break, albeit a short one. So we still have quite some topics to cover. We have a little less than 2 hours. So should we look into this area, loss of mission, which is basically, we said, infrastructure failure. Yeah. We maybe we have a power cut, or the data can't be handled anymore from the experiments and from maybe the transmission data from the EVA, from the analog astronaut, EVA equipment, cascading failure. Yeah, we have no power, therefore we have no internet, therefore we have no, the water pumps don't work anymore. That can happen. And then, of course, the habitat comfort. Yeah, maybe there is no heating, or it's getting too hot. It's no air conditioned, or it's raining into the habitat, something like that. I'm sure, Szymek, you have something to say about that as an architect.
Yeah, my first idea was to connect with the arrow all this what you have a personnel safety, or linked about the fire, environmental, or the one on the right side, concerning the habitat safety. You can easily link habitat safety down to this one.
Yeah, I think that
it's just infrastructure.
They're all linked. They're all kind of interlinked. Yeah.
Do you have something like in mind, like a simulation of loss of pressurization?
I personally don't know.
because this is a loss of mission as well, because everybody's dead inside.
I say so, yes, that might qualify as a loss of mission, yes.
It's like a meteorite hitting the it's a simulation, of course, hitting the base.
Yes.
You should be seeing fire guys on the fire conference when I told them that the loss of pressurization is also same important like evacuation from fire. They were shocked. Why? Because they did never meet that on Earth, and people forget about the possibility of being hit by the meteorite. It's like ISS lately.
Yeah.
No water, no water. If you do not have water or something like that, this is also a failure of infrastructure. If is it allowed to have a maintenance during the mission that somebody comes from outside and just fix things? It's because it's a critical failure that I don't know, the toilet is clogged and it's completely down.
Yeah. It really depends on how the mission is defined. Yeah, I mean, in many missions, we had people coming to deposit food supplies outside the habitat. Yeah, so the next time the astronauts went on EVA, they brought the food back inside. It's like a supply ship, like the Dragon, cargo Dragon, docking at the ISS. Yeah, somebody is bringing something there. External repairs by external people, I don't know. It's maybe the closest I find in comparison is astronauts going up on the space shuttle and repairing the Hubble telescope.
Yeah, but they are trained like 2 years to do that. So
yes.
what I have in mind that it would be allowed to have such a outside interference under condition of possible life threat.
Yes,
it's like if you have like a smoke detector is broken.
Yeah.
Okay. It's broken. It's not lack of batteries, but it's broken. And if it's detected, then it is a legal. It has its legal. I lost the word. It has.
It wouldn't break the simulation.
Yeah, but in fact, wherever there is a legal responsibility of the habitat owner involved, there should be an immediate repair from outside, even if it means that somebody will meet the people inside, because this is something that threatens the owners, the guys who are running the habitat under this condition. So let's say clogged toilet, it's not a life-threatening issue, but smoke detector, which protects the habitat itself, infrastructure, makes it you have to fix it. You cannot run without the proper legally bounded fire safety protection.
Yeah, I think
this was my idea.
Yeah, I think this is something that I want to see in the standards for an analog mission, because of course there is nothing stopping these people from coming inside, but what happens to the mission? Will the mission be interrupted, or will the mission end because the simulation has been broken? Yeah, and that's I think for each mission, currently for each mission to define. If you have a high fidelity mission, then it would certainly be the end of the mission, because imagine you have this failure in a spaceship to Mars. You can't bring some outside electrician into it.
Yes, I would say yes, but you can apply regulations of air industry, because when you have a plane, you always check the plane before, and before each mission you check technical condition of every single it is
Yes.
also a time consuming, it's a money consuming
Oh,
procedure, but then you reduce the risk of loss of mission due
Mhm.
to infrastructure
Yes.
failure.
Yeah.
I understand that it is it's like in escape rooms when you make a player scenario and then you go out and then the service service comes and sets everything back,
Yeah.
but they do not check every single lamp or lantern or everything. They check the global layout and they get back with all the puzzles back. But in terms of habitat, I believe it could be kind of a standard just to check everything, to have a checklist of all technical issues,
Like
to
like a pre-flight check.
yeah,
Here.
yeah, and full list to check every single infrastructure detail to have it to
all the
be
supplies that
operational.
are necessary. Yeah, that's
Of course, if it's not derived by the scenario.
Yeah,
but let's say clogging a toilet is kind of a scenario, but having a smoke detector broken, it's not a scenario.
Changing the batteries in the smoke detector or
Exactly.
CO2 detector is.
Yeah.
And then you find out there is no batteries in there to start with.
But please be aware that changing the batteries in the smoke detector requires a special, because then you take when you change the batteries, when you check the smoke detectors in a normal building life, you need to have a right to do it. Because then you take the responsibility for this particular smoke detector a life-saving device.
Yeah.
And this is also legally bound.
Yeah.
It's not like that you just change the batteries. It's not home, it's public space.
Yeah.
So whenever you deal with non-public spaces like a habitat, you need to be aware.
Yeah,
that,
it depends on the regulation of the countries. If it's considered a public space.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So we have more people back. Would anybody like to comment? Let me just zoom out. We have other areas to cover as well. Yeah, so please feel free to comment. We don't have to have a certain order of going through things. Yeah, we can jump in between risk management and safety simulations and loss of mission and everything. Everything is interconnected in the end anyway. So if you have any thoughts on any of these areas, or if you say, oh, we missed an area, please let us know. Anybody, any comment?
I have a point to
Yes, Julia.
comment. Yes, also I was remembering the operation of International Space Station, and for the improvement of the ISS was very important. The upgrade of an equipment called urine processing assembly, the UK. This equipment was very important to recycle the urine and also bring longevity to the operations, because before that, all the water was necessary to transport from Earth. And with this equipment, I believe 85% of the water from urine is recycled. Also, this is connected. One of the safest issues is how to save resources, because sometimes would have like sometimes not good behavior in terms of water consumption, or if it's an off-grid environment, maybe if the energy is not well consumed, maybe the batteries will collapse. And these would happen in analog emissions, but also in future space real situations. And I believe these environmental life support systems also related to water recycling, also the air, and also the energy is very important for the operation of the analog missions. Also, if you imagine like MDRS in Utah during the winter time can be very low temperatures below -0 Celsius. And if the system of heating systems not operate well, this would be difficult for the crew, also would bring risks. Also in Habitat Marte in Brazil, we have air conditioning, but if you have a problem in the air conditioning to keep the temperature around 23 Celsius, if the air conditioner is not working, we would have inside like 40 degrees, and this also would be risky, like related to the heating and cooling systems in the process. And this I believe is very important, because if it's very cold or very heat or wet, this would be not comfortable for the crew. Also bring some collateral damage to the also mental health and also difficulties.
Yes.
Sometimes it can be dangerous too, because if you have in a place like in Brazil, if you have we are in a hot area, if become very hot, maybe you would damage some equipment. And this would bring some difficulties to some equipment can burn and start a fire, something like this. And you need to consider like how these equipment are operating. If also complementary carrying some maintenance procedures, how to be proactive and also anticipate some maintenance related.
Yeah. Can we put this here in personal safety?
Yes, but
Yeah.
it's also related to infrastructure, these topics that I mentioned, and
Yeah.
how the infrastructure would bring safety or not safety situation to astronauts. Also, there is a infinite cycle, I believe.
Yeah.
Julio, I have a question. So if you have a broken air conditioning, which means in fact in high temperatures a life-threatening issue, how do you deal with that? What are your procedures in Marte?
Yes, it's a good question. We have like new equipments related to air conditioning. Also, one possibility is use like ventilators, vents to substitute. Also, if you have we have a backup. Also, is a procedure, because you have a portable air conditioning, would substitute the operation. Also, we are one threat sometimes in the rural area. There is some failures in energy supply, and when we have some failures in energy supply, because in rural areas are sometimes not operating well, sometimes is working, sometimes would present some failures during like 3 hours or 4 hours, and it's necessary call the electricity company to say to them, look, it's not sometimes a low voltage, it's not sometimes not as a low voltage, but this low voltage also can be dangerous for some equipments, because some equipments can break with low voltage or high voltage, and this also is a possible risk, really. Yeah, sometimes we can't control the situation, and you need to have a communication with a electricity company to know more information about how the energy will be stabilized, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was one of the Hydronaut missions. Hydronaut, they have currently the only functioning underwater analog habitat in the world, which is in Czech Republic. If you're interested, I can put the link. I think it's hydronaut.eu. And they had to cut a mission only a couple of hours short because the analog astronauts were too cold. Yeah. So and the medical team evaluated that as a risk to the health. So they cut the mission short. Only I think it was 3 or 4 hours, but it was cut short.
I can share one more thing about my experience. When you have a building, you always need to understand what is the emergency services arrival time. So then you can plan your emergency to-do list. I'm not talking about the mission. I'm talking about habitat itself and real danger. It's that you need to understand that. Julio mentioned that there was this is Martes in a rural area. What is estimated arrival time for the fire safety, fire services, or ambulance? The real one.
Yes, this is very important. Also, the direct number, sometimes phone number of a specific person that works in the health support system, and also the security. What are the number of the phone, and yes, as also not only like a general phone number, but a specific number of phone number of someone who would support us in different situations, like also some electricity and also other issues too. Yes, it's very important.
Do you report to services beginning of the mission?
Sorry?
So they are. Do you report the beginning of the mission to the services? So you say, okay, guys, you say to the firefighters, okay, we start the mission. Please be ready that we may call.
Yes.
You have something like.
Yes. With health and safety. Health and safety we mentioned, because in this area, sometimes in small cities, in many places, we don't have like a good fire support, fire department support. Sometimes located 40 kilometers or 100 kilometers from the location. But yeah, but we have the important numbers of some responsible personnel to be contacted.
Yeah, and then this actually brings up another question. If you have international missions and you are, for example, in Brazil, and the participants don't speak Portuguese, the question is also, do the emergency services speak English?
Yes, as situations there is necessary protocols for it to deal. Yes, it's very interesting point. Also, in other places that's not it's not an English speaker, right? It's also because we are imagining also other analog habitats starting in other places, like probably one in Colombia and And sometimes when we arrive in a health service, if you are English speaker, someone will have some difficulty to understand what you're saying, and it's a certain protocol for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I now put this on risk management. Yeah. Because that's kind of an overall thing that relates to the habitat structure. If you need an electrician, or to the analog astronauts, if you need a medical doctor, or to the mission support, if you need a psychologist. Yeah, Julie, you want to add something?
I was remembering something because we have like a form. This is a printed form with the participant mentions who is the person to be contacted if in some health undesirable situation, like if someone died or the participants suffer an accident, would be contacted to be mentioned, communicating some difficulties, some health issues. And this is a printed form, because sometimes if you don't have energy supply in that moment, would be contacted to inform that this person's having some difficulties. Yes, also something complementary related to health, also connected to real world outside of the analog station. It's how is the health services? Because if you have like a health emergency in United States, like health services are very high price. It's necessary to have like
Health insurance.
A health insurance to support you, because sometimes it can be very expensive. Like a minimal procedure can be $10,000 or $20,000 if you need some health support in the United States. If you don't have a health insurance, can be a big problem. How is the health support systems around the world? Because in Brazil it's free. It's a national health support system, but other places paid, and for international is different. The treatment, how to deal with it, it's a really point that also complement the CIMEC that you need to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. What other comments do we have?
I had a point.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So as Julio was talking about health insurance, or say what's the insurance system that is supposed to be followed. So on the same point, do we include the insurance charges within the registration charges that have been taken by the analog astronauts, or do we keep it as a separate part for them to do it by themselves? That would be a point of discussion, I believe.
Yeah.
Could come.
Yeah, very much so, Ruchira. Is insurance included in the participation fee? Yeah. Yeah, this is something that needs to be checked, but it can only also differ on national level. Yeah, can you buy a temporary insurance very easily for a group of people, or does it? Yeah, or does everybody have to buy their own? Yeah, it's also different legislations around the world. Yeah, very valid point, Ruchila. Any other comments? I'm just zooming out again, getting the overview effect. So we didn't really have a look at this one yet. Safety simulations. Yeah, we have said in the habitat safety, of course, everything is interconnected. That we want to have realistic drills, especially using smoke cannons or smoke bombs or whatever, with non-hazardous smoke, just to simulate the scenario. Here we have some points, recovery and rescue plans, EVAs, the standby crew, the support team. We have readiness assessment, is the medical equipment ready? It doesn't have to be just there, but it has to be ready to use, And if you look into your first aid kit, it has also a use by date, so is it up to date? Do we simulate medical emergencies? Do we have fire drills, etc.? Also, what about holistic simulations where we actually combine different scenarios to make check the worst case, like we have to evacuate the entire habitat, or something like that. Do we have any comments on this one?
Yeah, I think about safety simulation, the recovery and rescue plans. I think I will go back to the healthcare aspect, because during analog space missions, we just have a medical officer who is not necessarily has a good background in medicine. He may just have some lessons in first aid or something like this. So I think adding some AI tools like the one they are developing for deep space travel, some AI tools will help in this simulation, because we will meet like a disease symptoms that we don't know anything about. So I think trying this is a very good step, and it will help also in real space missions.
Also like telemedicine would fall into that field, Hossam, would you agree to that? I take that as a yes.
What?
Would you? I was just asking, like telemedicine would fall under that, into that field, use of AI,
also they are
yeah.
also they are like developing health spots, or what we call healthcare units, that it's all working with AI. I think trying this in analog space missions will be great for simulations.
Yeah. And Kushi mentioned in the comment, for holistic simulations, we should also include a communication plan that outlines how information will be shared among team members, and also providing training on effective communication strategies. Absolutely. Friendship. Communication protocols. And training of comms strategies. Definitely. What are the communication lines? If there is somebody on EVA, they stumble, they fall, they break their arm, what happens? Whom do we have to inform? Who has to inform? What information do we have to give? How fast do we have to inform? Can they just walk back to the habitat and then we raise the alarm, or does it have to be immediately? So definitely that needs to be defined. Kushi, that's a very valid point.
also, I think I will go back again to healthcare. I think we talked about the psychology.
Yeah.
We should make some tests in psychology, but how can you make sure that this participant is fit for this mission? I mean, physically fit.
Physically, or yeah, you mean like just like we said, we need to make psychological tests, so we also make physical fitness checks, yeah? So personal safety, psychological, habitat safety. So we put this here as a general point, yeah? Evaluated, yeah, for physical. Yeah, does that cover your point, Hassan? Yeah, Julio?
Yes, about the comment of Kushisha, she's saying that for holistic simulations, we should also include a communication plan that outlines how information will be shared among team members and also providing training on effective communication strategies. I believe is very interesting topic because in Habitat Mart we are creating all protocols are sharing in a board in the wall. And there is a QR code to access the specific protocols. And in this with QR code, we will have the all completed information about how a specific procedure will.
So it's like also about distribution of safety information, yeah?
Yeah, distribution of safety information, yeah, or carrying easily distribution okay, or clear,
Yeah.
information can be shared for the crew and how the crew would proceed independently. And also not waiting someone to do it. I believe is very interesting. Safety option.
Yeah. In the Amadee missions in the Austrian Space Forum, we have a lot of training around the communication. There is very fixed communication lines, like who is allowed to speak to whom and who is not allowed. Yeah, for example, there is like an EarthCom analog to the Capcom in NASA, and only EarthCom is allowed to speak to analog astronauts. Nobody else is allowed to speak to them. And so there are strict communication lines, and we are being trained in how these communication lines function, how to use them, how to talk. And we do a lot also exercises, yeah. Imagine this and this is happening. Who has to communicate what to whom and when? Yeah, so there's a lot of training around these communication protocols. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Ruchira, just fire away.
Yeah, so as we're talking about communication protocols, I was thinking like how in airplanes, we have that record the conversation that goes on between the pilot and the air traffic control. So similarly, do we implement a system that keeps a track record of all the communication that is going on in the habitat, so that in case there is any emergency or there is a need to look like what went wrong and how things started to go down. So do we have protocols for recording the conversations that go on within the habitat or with the MCC and the analog astronaut or say Capcom? So how do we develop rules around that area?
Yeah. So keeping track of records of all communication, so in case of an issue, it can be traced. Yeah. Good point. What else? Shall we look into this area once again? Sometimes it can be good to jump between the areas because then we can connect the dots. Do we have anything related to crew cohesion or the experiments themselves? Yeah, we are doing a lot of experiments. They can go wrong. There is missing information. There is missing pieces in some equipment. There can be issues with the time allocation. Yeah, somebody thought the experiment would take 2 hours, but then it took 3.5 or something like that. What are your thoughts?
Just a thought, as in, like we have analog stations which are like fully developed and functional, and then there are some analog habitat stations which have recently started or are in the phase of developing. So do we keep like a set of particular experiments that are to be conducted by the beginner analog station so that they gain the required understanding or expertise of how to move on to the next level of conducting the experiment? So do we develop like a set of experiments that would be common to all so that the new stations that are coming up can use this particular set of experiments to gain the required expertise and also to have an understanding of how the systems work together when we put everything into unison? Could that be a point?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there is experience, yeah. So the people who do the experiments, they have to have the experience. It's a tongue twister. Experiment experience. Yeah. So there should also be like certain standards, yeah, of conduct.
Or at least predicted outcome, or
Yeah.
and in fact each experience should be having the list of possible threats and risks before it's being conducted and approved by the mission control. Before it should be analyzed before the mission starts.
Yes.
And then risks and experience should be noted, and risks possibly the state of the habitat, like a failure of the infrastructure, will disable to continue the experiment.
Yes.
And each time risk should be at least noted to the before the mission starts, and then before the experiment starts, all the risks should be reassessed in terms of possible outcome to infrastructure. It's like batteries, overloading the batteries. Yeah.
Yeah. When we talk about risk management, which I thought it should actually be a separate workshop, maybe. Yeah, risk analysis. We usually determine what is the likelihood. How is it very likely that the risk will happen, or is it very unlikely? And if this risk will happen, what will be the damage? Is the data from the experiment not usable anymore, or can it destroy some equipment, or can it destroy the entire habitat, or can it does it pose a risk to health and life of the people doing the experiments? Yeah, so that is something that we do, and in most missions, yes, I hope so. I haven't seen many missions who don't do it. Yeah, risks from the experiments. To infrastructure and people, and maybe even to the environment. Yeah, it can lead to pollution, for example. Yeah. Yeah. So it's nice to fill something in the field of risk management. Yeah, and if we're talking about the very high risk environments, we would like to include a third factor. So normally, if we do such a risk analysis, we say, okay, the risk is very likely to occur. So I give it a 3 on a scale from 1 to 3. And if it's occurring, yeah, the impact is not too bad, so I give it a 2. So to get the priority of the risk, I would then multiply these 2. Yeah, 3 times 2 is a risk factor of 6. Well, if we have a very risky projects, I would also add a third factor, and that is the likelihood of the risk of the discovery of the risk that has happened being very low. Yeah. So what that means, if something happens, a risk happens, yeah, for example, let's say we are charging a battery. There is a risk that it's overheating and that it starts a fire. But if the risk that the overheating is not immediately discovered, but only like half a day later, yeah, then I can say, okay, this has a lack of discovery factor of 3, which is very high. Yeah, and then I have 6 times 3, and then I have my risk factor of 18. Yeah, so that's an additional factor that we should consider if, I mean, we are working with people. Yeah. So any risk that where there is a risk in the risk that it's discovered very late, if something is going wrong, then that risk is more dangerous. Did I put this very complicated?
No, but you can easily put that down. The risk is that if you have a very high risk, you have to have because experiment is conducted in some kind of a procedure. It's a procedure. You need to have it approved. So, for example, a mission control requires from the participant to check the battery we mentioned as an example, to check the battery, because the risk of explosion or fire is high. So you always have to recheck the high risk. So seeding a plant is a low risk, and overcharging the battery is a high risk. So you check the battery every 6 hours or every 2 hours, and plants you don't check.
Yeah, so you want to reduce the risk by doing these checks. Yeah.
Yeah, there's only possibility. So you reduce this possibility, so it will not be 18 but maybe 12.
Yes, exactly. And that's what we usually do in risk management. Yeah, we have not really quantified the risk, but we have a risk figure. Yeah, the risk has a figure of 18. And then I think, what can I do about it? I can do, yeah, checks, I can do training, and that would then reduce the risk to a factor of 12 and not 18 anymore. Yeah, and the thing is also what we said before, we can't just do this risk check once before the mission starts. This is a permanent activity that has to be done on a daily basis or sometimes hourly basis, sometimes even 5 minutes basis if it's, for example, monitoring the heart rate of the analog astronauts during the EVA. Yeah, you don't want to do it once an hour. Yeah, you want to do it more or less permanently.
In fact, in the if you have a risk evaluation a little bit on the right,
Yeah.
I would say that risk evaluation requires a standard of risk standard. So everybody, at least for the particular habitat, for all the types of missions, all the types of experiments, there should be one standard to evaluate the risk, and then as a result, to-do lists. And procedures, but I don't know, maybe it would be good to have a standard, international standard, to categorize types of experiments, and then so everybody in different habitats, the participants who participate in different habitats, there are people, lots of people doing that. They will have to, when filing the experiment data, they will use the particular type of standard of defining the risks concerning the experiment. This was my idea, unification.
Yeah, we have that to a certain extent for experiments involving humans. For example, if we do medical or psychological research, there has to be like an ethics commission and a board actually reviewing this experiment and then saying, okay, you can go ahead, or no, you can't do that. That is, and there are, yeah, quasi-international, not the entire world has not subscribed to that, but many countries have such a review board for the experiments, and there are also, for the experimenters, like I took an exam to make sure to get a certificate that I'm allowed to do research on humans.
I believe it's highly ethics is highly involved.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And from, I think it's not only considering human beings that we need to apply ethical standards, but also the environment. Yeah. We don't want the birds outside the habitats to be killed or something like that. Yeah, we don't want to pollute a nearby river or lake or water body. So. Yeah. I just need to jump back to one comment from Koshi regarding communication. We can jump back and forth. Koshi wrote, I think communication styles don't necessarily need to be unified, since depending on the type of analog missions, demographics of astronauts, etc., style, type of communication would differ. I think there has to be a balance between the two. So of course, Kushi, you're totally right. There are vast intercultural differences when it comes to communication. So if you force everybody to follow a certain standard, then first of all, which cultural standard should that be? And secondly, if we talk long-term missions, some people might get used to it and some people might get annoyed from not being able to use their own way of communicating. Yeah, so there is always a risk. Some aspects can be standardized. For example, one example that is widely used is spelling, yeah, that you use the NATO alphabet, yeah, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, and so on. If you spell something, just to be extremely clear. But you're totally right, Kushi, that it's personal styles, it's cultural styles, and cultural, it's not just national culture. Yeah, an engineer communicates in a different way than a salesperson. And an astronaut communicates in a different style than a medical officer. So it's also like professional culture. So absolutely. We have this.
I would disagree on that because having non-standardized communication, at least on the basic level, may lead to greater and higher risks during the emergency situations.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say when I deal with evacuation issues, you always take into consideration the multicultural demography of the base on the Mars, for example.
Yeah.
And the more multicultural everything is, the more redundant systems you need to provide and less people dependent. So everything what is connected to the people and depends on the people, then you need to consider a unification due to reduce the human factor. This is I would disagree that we can play all along as we want. It's in the field of life-threatening missions, which is simulation. Analog missions are simulation of life-threatening missions. You cannot allow yourself to be you should not be angry, for example. Of course, it's psychological, but the more professional you are, the less emotions you put in, the less culture you put into. You have to be as much communicative as it's possible, and then you can go there and course with bad language somewhere outside, but after you arrange emergency services, you arrange everything on place.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have to consider different scenarios, because communication in an emergency situation is bound to be different than communication on a Wednesday night dinner. Yeah, and communication styles should differ. Yeah, there should be probably more direct communication in an emergency situation and more maybe indirect communication in at the dinner table. Yeah, when it comes to emotions, we need our emotions. We can't just say, oh, we have to be professional, and being professional means that we don't show emotions.
I understand. I went to the field. I am totally soft. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand that you don't ask with air industry standard. Give me a Sierra Alpha Lima Tango.
Yeah.
But that's normal. But in fact,
If a battery catches fire in the habitat, I would not go around and ask, oh, how is everybody feeling about this now? No, I would just say, get out. So I think it really depends on the situation, and we probably, all of us in the mission, need to be very much we need to have the situational awareness. It's as many things in life. We are, as humans, we're complicated beings. We're very complex, not complicated, we're complex. Complicated would be easy to solve, but we're complex, and it's not black and white all the time. So, and I think being flexible is very important. I don't know if everybody would agree to that. Then we have in the chat, and I like this because it's very provocative. I think individuals are more important than the collective. What does everyone think about that? Do we agree? Do we disagree? And what does it mean for safety in the mission? Which is our overall topic.
If I can intervene, it depends on the context. It's very generic. If I can, if you allow me the thing. Obviously, individuals are more important than the collective. Yes, civilization is important, and obviously in a mission we don't have to think like an individual, otherwise the mission is going to fail. I think that's quite evident. You don't want egotistic people on a mission because the dynamics are not healthy. Let's say the outside of the context of a mission, this statement should be more or less black and white. There are a lot of gray shades on individuals is more important than the collective. I think neither is true, and there are a lot of different grades. Let's say they stay in the context of a mission. Obviously, the mission is important, and take over on the personal preference, I guess. Yeah,
I had this discussion once, and I really like that that it's brought up here. In one mission, I don't want to even mention which one it was. Somebody said, "Oh, we have quite a simple rule. It's safety first." And I asked, "Well, whose safety? The safety of an individual or the safety of the whole group? Or what does it mean, safety first?" Yeah. And then first there was like a shock, like, oh, we didn't think about that. So this is a very important question when it comes to safety. Yeah. Whose safety? Yeah. Is it the individual safety, or is it the safety of the group? Yeah. It's a trolley problem. It's basically the trolley problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a problem that also is used to train AI, the famous self-driving cars. You know, if you It's one of the famous AI problem. If you can save a family or one person, which one? But you can save both. Which one? I mean,
yeah, and the MIT, they did a study, and they asked people from all over the world, whom would you save? Would you save elderly people or younger people? Would you save a nurse versus a criminal convict? And the results were so very different across cultures that yeah, I'm very hesitant about the entire AI thing, because I think it will ultimately be kind of discriminating against a lot of culture, because the culture who invented it and who pushes it into the market will kind of win, if we can call it a win. Yeah, basically will push their culture out to other people, and I'm not entirely sure if that's the best thing. So I think we need more discussions about that. Yeah, so yeah, I think it depends a bit on the situation. Is the individual more important or the group more important? As I said, we are very complex being. Yeah, and thanks, Manuel, or whoever is logged in with your name. We have a presentation in 25 minutes. So we have to see if we have some more important points. We have so many points. And what we are going to take over to the next CHASM conference.
So yeah, Karen, just heard you mention, so are you guys almost done?
No, we need another 2 weeks.
That always, we all need another 2 weeks, but is it going well? You guys doing okay?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
no,
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, let me know if you prefer to do before 25 minutes. I think we don't have much more than 20 minutes on our side anyway, and it means that we have more time for Q&A. See, Simon, this time we're implementing more time for Q&A, thanks to you. So yeah, just let me know if you'd rather present earlier, but at least give us 15 minutes, 20 minutes, if that's okay.
Okay.
I have no idea how to present such a big topic in 20 minutes. It's crazy. It's just.
Well, you have to learn, you know, it's like my thesis in 120 seconds.
Yeah,
It's pitching.
I was just gonna delegate it to you.
Yeah.
I would ask ChatGPT to resume the points for us.
Not allowed, not allowed. You can't get a grade if you do that.
There will be a world where there is no AI allowed. It feels more like a Blade Runner day by day. Yeah?
It does really. But I'm not sure we'll let it do my analog mission. Let's see if we can replace a mission control center operator.
Yeah, we actually ran some tests with the AI this morning.
Yeah.
And it unfortunately included a text saying manned missions to Mars.
Okay. Whoops. Nice.
Failure,
Nice.
failure.
Oh, by the way, I'll just show you guys quickly that this is Astroland. And right now we have nice weather. So here is where we're having the workshop. This is a, capsule. This is small museum. And this is the mission control center, which I think is closed, but it's absolutely awesome. So we're very lucky to be here. And we miss you guys, but hopefully you can share a lot with us in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Sounds good?
Built a small city there, Manuel.
Sorry?
Really, he built a small city there, Manuel. It's really a whole neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a kind of technological neighborhood, but it's really nice. Like, let me check. There you go. This is how it looks like around. And you got the cyber hut, just here.
Mm-hmm.
So there. So we're about 15 minutes from the sea. So yeah.
Nice.
Anyway, I'll let you guys get back to the workshop.
Yeah.
I'll see you in 20 minutes. Okay.
Okay. See you in 20. Yeah, so which points are we missing? Which points do we have to discuss again in more depth? What is your opinion? Where are you? Whether you have questions, comments?
Congratulations, Karen. Very interesting activity, very good ideas. Also, I take notes about possibility of new protocols for us. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not just me, it's the entire CHASM team who, we came up with this. So I'm just moderating the session. So thank you to the CHASM/Astroland team for this preparation. Yeah, so Julio, we have a lot to talk about next week. And the week after. For information, I will participate in Habitat Marte's mission 140 from the 7th to the 13th of March, physically in Habitat Marte in Brazil.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah.
How much time is is for the explanation of the points?
15 minutes.
So that would be 5 minutes, three blocks of 5 minutes. Maybe we could
No,
choose
not
three
necessarily. No, not necessarily. I think we have a lot more. We have discussed a lot more on personnel safety, so we should that should be reflected in our presentation, I guess. We don't have to be so strict with the timing there.
We should ask maybe what's the area that is less discussed generally, and maybe people are more interested.
Yeah, I think we can see it by the number of comments. So the safety simulations doesn't have a lot of comments. The risk management doesn't have too many comments. But then there is overlapping. There is a lot of overlapping between these 4 areas. So I wouldn't even see them as totally separate. Yeah, we have safety simulations. Yeah, communication protocols and training of communication strategies. Yeah, that also, of course, relates back to personal safety, to the communication topics we have been discussing there, etc., etc. So, do you want to present it, Enrico? You're muted.
Sorry, okay, you couldn't hear me. Would be nice, but as I said, I was saying I can't because I'm actually working. Basically, I'm dividing a bit my attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can be more present, but
who would like to present?
Simon, I know that you are very good with presentation. I heard.
No. I'm very bad at that. I think the moderator can just, with our help.
Yeah.
I'm still searching for one thing I want to share with you. I believe in the chat, because about this interesting topic about individuals and collective. In fact, in the modern fire risk assessment, now it's being developed into something above the regulations. It's about the risk assessment, and it is there is a parameter that you can. I'm trying to find the proper name. I will find it and paste it here. It is based on acceptable loss of people by the society. The risk is assessed.
Yeah.
So if you have a close community like Mars habitat, there will be a society that will accept particular level of risk. And it will be different from the habitat on Mars, on the habitat on Moon, or I don't know, the big ecology on Earth. Even if the number of people is the same, the community, the society built there has a different level of acceptance of risks. So on Mars, they will people will accept that somebody will die. On ecology on Earth, it could be unacceptable. So the means of the fire protection, for example, or the loss fire protection could be different. And this is if we are talking about the individual and importance and collective importance.
Absolutely.
So the society decides what is the acceptance, and then it spreads to the level of safety. And if you ask what is the safety of who, it's the safety of everybody, but under condition of particular acceptance of risks.
Yeah. And I think it also depends, the acceptance of in society also depends on what kind of risk it is. Like it's totally accepted that we get injured or killed in a car accident. Now nobody would say, oh, let's stop, because tens of thousands of people are killed every year in road accidents. Do we stop driving? No, we don't, because that is a risk that is acceptable. If the same number of people would die in fires, that would be totally unacceptable in the same society. Yeah.
I found it. It is called Life Quality Index.
Yes.
And it's it is of course measured in a different disciplines. It's a little bit differently measured, but this is the basis of the risk definition.
Yeah.
Acceptance by the society.
Yes, and I'm always surprised to how few people have like fire protection in their homes. Yeah, have smoke alarms, fire extinguishers, fire blankets. It's not very widespread, and it only costs it costs very little. Yeah.
It depends on the materials you use. For example, I've seen a few. I've seen habitats, analog habitats, where there are lots of plastic.
Yeah, no, I mean
it's kind of dangerous. Yeah.
I wasn't talking about habitats. Normal household. Yeah.
Normally, you think that you are protected because the time for the evacuation is very quick. You just run out, and
but still, I don't want everything to burn down.
Oh, of course. But if you have a villa for 3,000 square meters on the Mediterranean Sea, with a beautiful view, definitely you will have some kind of a fire protection mean, because 3,000 square meters, it's something you need to take care of.
Yeah. It's that is the risk acceptance. Yeah, which risks are we accepting and which are we not accepting? Yeah, very valid point.
So at home you can accept it yourself, but in the base or in the closed habitat, it should be a society. And the funny thing is that it changes over the time, because the society develops and changes its approach. Mostly it's could be modified via drills and consciousness of the overall level of understanding the endangerments. This is one thing, and the other thing is that some cases, like somebody dies, And it's like in air industry, when plane crashes, the normatives, the regulations change.
Mm-hmm.
It's I believe it's the same. So making the scenarios for the missions can also maybe be developed like that. So you improve the scenarios, yes.
Yeah.
So the way you make it and way you improve it, the way you measure it, the improvement could be standardized somehow. I'm not quite sure if I'm clear.
I think so. Yeah, so if
It was
something
just
happens,
about a risk assessment.
yeah, if something happens and we take measures that it won't happen again, then the risk is more accepted.
But Manus make a very good point on that. This is so crazy. There's one sentence and there is a long discussion.
Yeah, but this is important.
That's cool.
Why we have to have these different opinions. And I really like when somebody has totally different opinions and totally different viewpoints, because only by discussing those we actually move forward. Because if we were all of the same opinion, there would not be any progress. And life would be very boring. Not only on Mars, but also on Earth. Yeah. So let me zoom out once again to get the overview effect. Not that much. Anything we need to add? We want to add anything open? Julia, you already have a lot of homework to do now.
Yes, I just work here. I just taking notes and also write some new protocols for us, and it's very, very, very interesting, this opportunity to also think about new ideas. Also, something very important I consider in my point of view is how the analogue habitats can be like an open platform to freely cooperation, and also like a open innovation process, and also having different points of view. And we have participants here from many different fields of studies, and this is very interesting for us. For Habitat Marti, very interesting. Also, it's possible to share it lately. Carrying can be very useful.
Yeah. Do we think that it would improve analog mission safety if we had more cooperation between the missions?
Yes, also, I believe this is one of high points of the of this activity of this Congress is think about safety, right? And because all people that live in their homes or live in the countries to travel to other places to participate in an analog mission, they want a different experience, but they need to come back safely to their homes, and it's very important what we are discussing here today.
Yeah. So can the CHASM conferences, can we as participants of the conferences contribute to more safety in missions by bringing more people together from different habitats, from different backgrounds?
Yes, absolutely.
So we can more put down here, more cooperation and more conferences. Yeah.
In fact, not only, because if you follow the conference, like I would say that maybe Mars UK can provide kind of a platform of online exchange, constant exchange. So conferences will be some like summing up of the particular works on particular subjects.
Yeah.
Because
well, there is a platform, the Analog Astronaut Community,
yes,
for constant exchange.
But when you try to work with documents, just produce the document like a real, I don't know, set of rules, set of proposed procedures.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that? So you have like one place, like you click it on mirror here, and you just see what is a risk assessment, and then you have more documents, even the document themselves.
I think that I would expect that to be one of the outcomes of the standardization initiative, but like document sharing and standardization. Yeah, that's a work in progress. I think also the WBA, the world's biggest analog that will take place in 2025 will be a good basis for that, where we, for the first time, different analog habitats are brought together to actually create one distributed mission, kind of simulating a settlement of Mars with different cities that have to communicate with each other, with different places where people will live on Mars, because we can't just open the door and drive over. So that might also be some contribution. Yeah. Anything else? We have 4 minutes left. Any last thoughts before we go into presentation mode? Thanks, Kushi, for posting the link to the Analog Astronaut Community. Manu said, all I wanted to say is that when it comes to culture, it's better to assess people's individual differences as opposed to their collective. Not sure how it became an issue about safety. Yeah, basically what you're saying, I think, is that stereotypes don't work. Yeah, not all the Spanish people are like this, and not all the Brazilian people are like that, and not all the Polish people do this. Yeah, there is quite a bandwidth. So I would, as someone who has actually studied intercultural business communication, I would fully subscribe to that, Manas. We shouldn't stereotype. Yeah. Polish always complain. And, we do. This is a national service delivered to the world. I would not subscribe to that. I've been living 3 years in Poland, and I had a very, very excellent experience there. So, yeah. Yeah. So, last chance for a question, comment. The final countdown has started. So, as I said, we probably need another 2 weeks to get ready. Yeah.
Are we going, the presentation is going to be in this chat, or we jump to another one?
I think we stay here. Julio, you had another comment, question?
Yes, I'd like to invite everyone to participate in our missions in Brazil. Also, we have direct flights from Europe to Natal from Lisbon, and everybody welcome. Also, some candidates can lead or comment some missions here. Also, we can set up the mission according with some specific demands and some specific studies. Also, we are trying to do a lot of things related with also architecture features, also connected with sustainable construction processes. And also I see in CIMAC and remember that we are trying to work a lot of things related to architecture too.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody is welcome to visit us.
An architecture mission, that would be interesting. We haven't had any of these yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Space architecture.
Enrico, what would you say? Bunch of architects is a disaster together. Be honest.
What's that, sorry?
Bunch of 6 architects closed for 2 weeks. It's not going to happen. No, it's going to be a disaster.
We tried that. We tried that already, I think.
Yeah. In Paris, we have like 6 days. It was fun.
In Dubai as well, yeah.
Yeah. If you have like 10 liters of wine or something like that, then maybe we can see a day or two.
You had me at wine.
Yeah.
Actually, that's something that we want to try in Habitat Marte. Can we grow wine, like grapes on wine? Can't, of course, grow wine. Can we grow grapes in Martian regolith?
In fact, it could be a basis, one of the bases of the Martian economy.
Yes.
The luxury goods.
That's
wine, vodka, special alcohol.
Yeah, there is a company in Chile called Star Wine. The plan is to send wine into space and then bring it back to Earth and sell it. And it's a bit tricky because you need specific special bottles that actually withstand the forces during launch and re-entry. So you can't just send a normal bottle up.
Karen, can you hear me?
Yes. Wow.
Okay. So we're going to start with Alan. He's going to be one of the group leaders for safety. Then it's going to be you guys, and then it's going to be a third group. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So do let me know if they can't hear you. Just give us a minute. Let me a second, I need to check with that. But yeah, normally, so Alan is just here, so you should be able to see him. He's going to speak next to the computer and to the crowd that's over here. So hopefully everybody can hear. We don't have a camera, so sorry about that. Then Alan, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much. Hi everyone. Yeah, on our workshop we looked at the different categories that were, that Sam and Karen put together as the outline things to discuss and look at, and they were good starting points, and we addressed quite a few of them. But it also was quite good that 2 or 3 new categories came out of the early discussions. I'll try for my rough notes to summarise it and make it kind of flow. I hope so, anyway. So, if we start with looking at personal safety, we looked at the different categories. Some of the things that we expanded on or looked at was in the areas of things like the psychological side of things, because as well as the physical, there's the psychological aspects, and we had a few examples of from some of the analogue missions that people have either been involved with or know of. And one that came out from Linares was that they literally had somebody that got COVID and was sick. So the idea of have you planned for and how do we react to, we need to plan for, and then how do we have systems in place to react to the literal physical somebody being sick. In their case, the person who got COVID, it was right on the first day. So it was in the early introductions, they weren't really started the mission, but it still led to sort of complications and problems. You get the individual human aspect of the disappointment of not doing the mission. But it led us on to think about what would be the effects if there were not just one, but possibly 2 or 3, or maybe the whole mission. It could be 5, depends on the numbers that different places can handle. You could have from one member up to the whole team, potentially literally really ill if they all got flu or a bad cold, or worse, well, hopefully worst case scenario, not something like smallpox, but even COVID, it's bad. So it's good that we had that area to look at, but also there's a couple of examples of the real situations that can arise, and then how we actually handle them. What are the effects on the mission and people and everything else? Another aspect we looked at from the personal safety side was we added another category amongst all the others of EVA safety mission, the psychological. We said physiological, and where we went with that was looking at issues for analogue astronauts, and we actually had a couple of examples of thoughts of like dehydration. And Mark gave us an example of where if you're doing lots of activity and you're doing EVA stuff and you're getting physically drained, if you like, sometimes the dehydration can creep up on you, or you don't realise till the end, or you might be in a situation where you're trying to stay to the protocols, you don't want to go back inside, you haven't got any more fluid, so you have to wait to the end. And in Mark's case, he said he drank about 2 litres of water as soon as he finished. It was like body was screaming, I need rehydration. And in Linares, Zagatura or Victoria said there was a person that had been doing lots of things and they gradually got dehydrated, and they weren't aware. And obviously we haven't got, at the moment, most places haven't got the sophistication of like the NASA type full body monitoring and see all your vital signs. And it was only when the person's EVA top or their head camera suddenly slowly went sideways, and then the mission controller could see that the person had fainted, and obviously so then they brought that to an end, and you have to follow the normal protocols of airlocks, you get the person out or whatever. But it was a good example. That there were 2 real examples of dehydration and the physiological effects. And therefore, how do we plan as best as possible to cover all those aspects? Or maybe it'll make us all think about that side of things in a slightly different way or a broader way. Another thing linked to the physiological was virus. I mentioned about COVID, the idea of isolation. Do you have the room? In Linares' case, the person that got COVID, it's on the first day, but had they been a few days in, they could have isolated the individual, but in their case, and I'm not sure what Astroland and various other analogue missions around, what space have you got? Because you might be able to isolate somebody, but then if they're in a small, like a tube inside of a bigger dome, yes, you isolate them, but there's a psychological and physiological problems that if they've got to be 5 days and they can only wriggle around a little bit, not do physical exercise or recover, or even have the space to feel that they're psychologically and physiologically they're recovering. It's a thing to think about. In Linares' case, that they thankfully didn't get to that point.
Evacuated or to take it like capsule down, like capsule to have the comfort facilities, have the kitchen, have the toilet,
So for the people online, Manuel just said that in Astroland, they don't have the facilities to isolate people. So it would be actually something to think about.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You can keep an airlock and then that's you can only out there.
But obviously, for most people felt that, and this is an area of further discussion, most people felt that obviously at the end of the day, the absolute top priority is like the human safety. Sure. Because you're only simulating things, even though it would ruin a mission, if you needed to do it, then you just evacuate everybody if that's what the situation needed. But it was good to have some examples of how real illnesses or potential and dehydration and COVID and viruses, thoughts of and what has actually happened and how we would plan in the future. And it linked to some of the other aspects, things like risk management and safety simulations and even potentially loss of missions. I know most people have got very good protocols and you try and follow them. And linking down into like loss of mission and that idea of the protocols, Mark gave us a good example of they did a simulated injury where this person supposedly had a broken ankle, and various problems ensued because although the mission controllers knew that this was going to happen and the analog astronauts knew there was a potential for any sudden and unexpected emergency to be announced, so they were half ready for that. But when they were told, oh, this guy's got a broken ankle, first problem was, if I've understood it right, the first problem was there were two people on the EVA and it was a bigger person that was the injury. So straight away, they couldn't really have the smaller, lighter, weaker person carrying the bigger one. Not just the physical side of it, but also the safety. You wouldn't do that on purpose, because you don't need to. You have to look after the safety of everybody. But that then showed, so what do we do? So the commander came out of the main module and they had to help. So that solved the problem in one sense, but it shows you that you're then you're in a simulated jeopardy position if nobody's inside. So therefore, what if the door locked and you couldn't undo it? Obviously, you just abandoned the mission, but it would cause that. Even worse was because it was expected that a medical emergency would occur, but not that actual nature, although trained in average responses, the crew that were doing the outside and then with the broken ankle, when they came back in, they simulated really well the actual injury and the recovery, but in their mind being focused so much on that recovery, they didn't follow the protocols and the airlock stuff wasn't done right, and they all died in theory, thankfully. So it's a thing to think about, that even simulating these things sometimes, your point of focus can move away from, and it shows us the power of, even though it might seem boring to some, the repeated protocols and training and all of those sides of things could eventually lead to a loss of mission. So that's another aspect that we looked at. Looking at the safety simulation side, we did a little bit on that, not a huge amount. Again, we linked it to I call it Mark's twisted ankle sim. It gave us answers, but new risks as well, as I explained, looking at the drills, medical emergency situation, the medical equipment, and all that side of things. We also looked at recovery and rescue plans, looking at the minimum, maximum, and optimum number of people, type of equipment, type of support. They're all aspects to think about and look at. Also to simulate emergencies that fail, as in that case, or how mission control responds and reacts to different emergencies in the safety simulation scenario. With Mark and Bente sort of gave us a good line. We added a new category amongst the main four. We went into environment. Where we were looking at with that is twofold. It was the effect of the environment on the analog astronauts and the whole mission, but more importantly, perhaps our human interaction, even if it's in a cave or a lava tube, that if you, like Manuel was saying to us earlier, that you've got potential 20 years or so of use of that facility, but you've got very strict guidelines on what you can do and can't do, and you mustn't, like you were saying, about putting things on scaffolding structures, because you can't damage it. And Mark rightly raised the idea of, in all of these scenarios, we have to be careful not damaging the environment. And that's where good planning and preparation and rules and protocols can help prevent that. And also the whole idea of contamination, not just of anything you might be on, on Earth in the different environments you're allowed to use, but it brought out the whole ethical and total Mars aspect of should we even go there at all? Other than, it's a thing to think about and look at. Other than robotics, we've got rovers, dozen rovers going around on Mars. You could argue some people even don't like that it has contaminated it a bit and it's taken elements of Earth to Mars. But not my own view is I'm actually made me think a bit more about the idea of should we go at all. But it raises the discussion, and we can at least look at that side of it. So we felt that category of the environment both ways, environment to us and us to the environment here on Earth, on the Moon, and potentially even Mars. Last but not least, we're looking at the risk management side. Oh, everybody goes, oh, I love risk management. It's one of my favourite areas, believe it or not. But people will laugh. I know Victoria and Agatha will probably laugh about me being a risk manager or looking at things, having all the stuff that talked about the other day. But suffice to say, it is an important area, and we looked at a few aspects of like making all procedures and activities available to new crew members and the communications between all analogue missions. It was interesting that we're talking lunchtime and now in our discussion groups, that to me it shows one of the small aspects of the benefits of the whole idea of CHASM or any communication between the different analogue missions, because what one group have seen another lot haven't, and what one person or a group have experienced can pass on to everybody else. It shows the benefit of this, and it is true to say international around the world, from South America, Europe, the world at large, the benefit of all that. But let us not forget that the whole idea of risk management, we can share the positives and the negatives and all the different features. Possible future missions may cover complex disability. Agatha gave us an example that they had a blind astronaut on one of their missions. And it was quite interesting to hear in a very summarised form a lot of the aspects of how you help the person by having sort of different surfaces, obviously things like braille panels for that side of it, but even the surface you walk on, you can have hard and soft and enable them to understand, this is a safe path. It starts going, say, soft or hard, I forget which way around it was, but as long as there's a difference, then that can help that individual. But it raised this whole awareness of the para-astronaut aspects and how we handle it, how we plan for it.
So we've got a perfect talk coming up on that. Perfect.
There you go. So that's it. So it's going to be ideal. So that's what we felt was worth raising. Looking at another area of risk mitigation, part of the risk management thing, was the idea of like redundancy. I've been a reliability and safety engineer for a lot of years. It's definitely one of my favourites. But we mentioned, one of us mentioned like the moon mission. Most of the systems, I don't know in detail, somebody might know more than me, but I know most of the systems were very single path, and it was a huge risk. But the space, mass, size, power constraints they had, and the knowledge that it was likely to only be a few days, so that the radiation protection was quite limited. But then, thankfully, they weren't there that long. But the whole mission thing, I only know that the main mission control computers were trebleized, if you like. There was 3 systems. Having said that, they were like, Sinclair calculator sort of level things. They were very, very crude in 1969 compared to today's standards, but it was the best they could do with the size, space, and technology restraints. But nowadays, moving forward, we're looking at 2 things. One is the whole idea of dualization or multi-path safety for the most critical systems, and also the commonality of things where you have simple modules or reusable modules. We touched on most people don't think about it, but modern aircraft have like multi-displays and they're the same equipment and a little bit of software that's different. So the thoughts for a Mars mission or a Moon mission, we're moving much more towards the modular and reusable things, where and literally you can have the same, say, display, but if you've got 3, you use them for all of the different functions if they're all there. But eventually, if you've only got down to 1, it's like, how high am I, or where am I flying? If it's an aircraft, or you're on a Mars mission, it's controlling the environment and your breathing and safety of that. That would be the last one that you would want to fail.
So, Alan, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to write that, and then we get the online people, because we have a hard deadline at 4 for the talk. But it's been, I think we can talk about this for weeks.
I had some notes. Yeah, I had Agathis as well. Hopefully I've covered most of the bits.
And we put all the notes online also for people. Yeah.
So
30 seconds. Any conclusive thoughts?
Conclusions are in 30 seconds. The benefit of having people from different analog missions, backgrounds, countries, cultures, and that has been an incredible benefit. And even on these little limited discussions, and the way forward shows us the collaboration of CHASM is a great aspect and a great way forward.
Looks awesome. Okay, so online people, your time to shine.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to present this together with Shimek or Simon. Yeah.
Okay.
We have, as you can see from this picture, most of our notes are really in the field of personal safety. And we have found out that it's really a lot of interlinking. So some of the personnel safety has impacts or is linked to safety simulations and to risk management and to loss of mission, etc. So one of the topics that was kind of a thread throughout the discussion was we need to have proper analog astronaut selection in terms of physical fitness, in terms of psychological fitness, but also in terms of experience when it comes to running the experiments during the mission, and the training and risk and safety monitoring throughout the mission is very important, and not just at the beginning. Simon?
You want to talk about personal point by point, or we just mix it?
Yeah, I think we can just mix it because we only have 9 minutes left.
All right. So I believe that the most important thing is that we maybe we connected that, but in fact we were discussing, let's say, hardware and software. Yes, people and hardware. We are running people on. And there are risks and safety features connected to the hardware itself, to the people themselves, and then there is a connection in between. And we came out that many things that, of course, are connected, and they require proper risk assessment and standardization, probably, of risk assessment procedures. And for experiments, for people, for hardware, and then preparing for each of the part, the risk assessment procedures, and I don't know how you call it, gradation. Then you come out with the proper means and, like Julio said, to-do lists in case of every scenario connected to the particular part of the analog habitat life and particular mission. So this is we have so many thoughts. I don't know, maybe I talk about the hardware and you talk about the people, like quickly. So in loss of mission of personnel safety, there is a very important role of this of the building of the habitat systems itself, because part of them are just can be simulation by simulated in simulation failures, but also there is a big part of critical real failures that require also proper procedures, and they are legally bound to the and require much serious approach, because some of them could be a life-threatening issues that they need to be dealt with, like loss of air conditioning in Brazil, or possibly a simple not working fire detector. So we were thinking that before every mission, there should be a full check of technical issues that are dependent, that people's life and health and good condition depends on in real life. Maybe you go for the people, because at the top, this topic I can talk forever.
Yeah, we have talked about also psychological issues during missions, yeah, and we can do all kinds of screening. It can still happen that somebody gets anxiety or has a panic attack or is overly stressed or suffers from insomnia. And while we don't want to provoke such situations in an analog mission, if they should occur, if somebody gets for some reason a panic attack during an analog mission, we can learn a lot from dealing with such a situation. So we have also said that, of course, analog astronauts need to have and mission support teams as well. The analog astronauts are usually a small number of people, and the mission support team is a very large group that people need training in medical first aid, but they should also get training in psychological first aid. We also need to make sure that in the habitat we have contacts for emergency services, be that fire brigade, medical help, and even if we need an electrician, if something is wrong with electricity, these people need to be informed. Yeah, so they need to know that there is a mission going on. They need to know where the habitat is located, and we need to know how long it will take them to get to the habitat. We need to, in international missions, we need to make sure that if we call emergency services, there's somebody speaking English or whichever language the mission is in, because it doesn't help if we call them and we can't communicate with them. Yeah, we need to make sure that there is, of course, a first aid kit and everything, but we also need to have certain pharmaceuticals there, like, yeah, from painkillers to, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, that we have a small pharmacy there that we can actually help. And it's, as Simon said before, we need to have a checkup on technical equipment before the mission. We need to, of course, have a checkup on people before the mission, but we should also make sure that we have regular checkups and maintenance work, so we actually avoid running into trouble. And if we run into trouble, that we diagnose it at a very early stage, and that is relating to issues that people have, yeah, if they fall ill, but it's also if the solar panels don't work. We want to know about it as early as possible, not only if the power cuts off or something like that. And yeah, we spoke about experiments. You know, some experiments can, of course, pose a danger to equipment, to the habitat, to the environment, to people. Yeah, if we're, for example, doing chemical analysis and using some harmful substances, things like that. Risk management is something that in general we can talk about the risk management in habitats for at least 2 weeks without interruption. But it's very important to be aware of all the risks that are connected to such an analog mission, and that we actually classify these risks. And we've also been talking about what risks are acceptable, and that this depends very much on the society and on circumstances. Yeah, that people, for example, society would probably accept it if someone would die when going to Mars, but they would not accept it somebody dying in an analog mission, for example. Yeah. So the acceptance of the society is an important factor, and this acceptance, the risk acceptance changes over time. Yeah, we can either become more used to it, that we have to live with the risk, or if something really bad happens, like we had the example of a plane crash, that society sees that measures are taken, that it doesn't happen again. Yeah, and then it's also the risk is more acceptable if we actually learn our lessons from a risk that has occurred. Yeah, simulations.
Karen,
yeah.
we got 30 seconds. Sally's scorecard. What I would suggest is for anyone who would like to discuss this further is to perhaps organize a session next week or in the coming weeks where we could debrief about this. Obviously, all the recordings would be made available, but right now we obviously have a talk, panel talk, so we need to check up on the link. I know, Karen, if you could share the link on the chat of this Zoom so that if anyone wants to follow up, they can log in. But right now we're gonna install and we're gonna start the panel talk. It's been really great hearing from all of you. It's a great contribution. Look forward to reading in details the mirror board, and it'll be shared. And do also join us for the second workshop. And well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.